Peter Verigin. Published January the 23rd, 2018. Further information can be found at the end of this recording. Peter Vasilevich Verigin, often known as Peter the Lordly Verigin. July the 12th, 1859, October the 29th, 1924. Was a Russian philosopher, activist and leader of the community Daugavpils in Canada. Part 1. Biography. Part 1. Biography. Chapter 1. In Transcaucasia. Peter Vasilevich Verigin was born on July the 11th, 1859, in the village of Slavyanka in Elizabethpol Governorate of Russian Empire. The village, located in the northwest of what is today the Republic of Azerbaijan, was one of the settlements founded by the Daugavpils, a large sect of communally living peasants, exiled to the Transcaucasia from Ukraine and southern Russia in the 1840s. His father, Vasily Verigin, was an illiterate, but reportedly rich peasant, who, once elected a village headman, showed himself a real despot. June 29th happens to be the feast of Saints Peter and Paul. Although the Daugavpils don't venerate saints, per se, this day, often known as St. Peter's Day, is still a traditional day of celebration, and thus it may have been the case that young Verigin was named after St. Peter. Peter was one of 7 brothers. His 4 older brothers did not study anything at all, but Peter and 2 other brothers, Vasily and Gregory, were homeschooled, at least to the extent of learning to read and write. There were no formal schools in Daugavpil villages at the time. At quite a young age, Peter Verigin married Evdokia Georgievna Kotelnikova in 1882, soon after his marriage, while his wife was expecting their first child. Peter P. Verigin. He started working as a secretary and administrative assistant for the leader of the Transcaucasian Daugavpils, Lukaria Vasilyevna Gabanova. Born 18. Died December the 15th, 1886. Lukaria Gabanova was the widow of the community's previous leader, Peter Kalmykov, and was also known as Kalmykova, by her late husband's surname. The Kalmykov dynasty resided in the village of Gorilovka, one of Daugavpil communities in Georgia. Shown on one of J.J. Kalmykov's maps. In the Sirotsky Dom, or the orphanage, the facility serving as the Daugavpil headquarters, as well as, indeed, home for orphans and the aged, Lukaria was respected by the provincial authorities, who had to cooperate with the Daugavpils on various matters. While working for her and living at her residence, Verigin received an extensive religious education, and was prepared by childless Lukaria to become her successor as the leader of the Daugavpils. He became acquainted with the Daugavpil ideas of administration, rejecting secular government. The Daugavpils rejected the holiness of Jesus Christ and the Bible, and were naturally pacifists and conscientious objectors who refused to participate in wars and battles. The death of Queen Lukaria in 1886 was followed by a leadership crisis. However, only part of the community, the large party, accepted her designated successor, Peter Verigin, as the leader. Others, known as the small party, sided with Lukaria's brother, Michael Gubanov, and the village elder Alexei Zubkov. While the large party was a majority, the small party had the support of the older members of the community and the local authorities. So, on January the 26th, 1887, at the community service where the new leader was to be acclaimed, the police walked in and took Verigin away. He was to spend the next 16 years in government custody. Still, the large party Daugavpils maintained contact with him and continued to consider him their spiritual leader. Part 1. Biography. Chapter 2. Northern Exile. While in exile, Verigin got quite a tour of Russian north. He was first sent to Shenkursk, in Arkhangelsk Governorate, now Arkhangelsk Oblast. In the Russia's north, arriving there in October 1887. In the summer 1890, he was transferred to Kola on the Barents Sea. It was then Russia's northernmost town, as Murmansk and Polyarny were to be built yet. In November 1894, he left Kola for Obdorsk, now Salkid. In the northwestern Siberia, in Shenkursk, Verigin, along with several exiled Daugava elders, shared 2 houses between them. When this small band of Daugava exiles was visited by Peter Verigin's brother, Gregory, in September 1888, he was somewhat surprised and impressed by their complete vegetarianism, as Grigory's family back in South Caucasus was still eating meat. In November 1894, as he was being transferred from Kola to Obdorsk, Verigin wrote a message to the Daugavas asking them to obey God's commandment, "Thou shalt not kill, destroy their weapons, and refuse military service." His message was taken to the Caucasus by his brothers Gregory and Vasily, who spread it throughout the Daugava communities. Soon, the confrontation between pro-Verigin pacifist Daugavas, the large party, and the government keen on drafting their youth came to head. On Easter Sunday 1895, 11 Daugava conscripts refused to do military training. As days went on, more conscripts laid down their arms and refused further service. Reservists were returning their registration papers to the draft boards. Finally, in the night of June the 28th to the 29th, July the 10th to the 11th New Style, 1895, the night before St. Peter's Day, and, incidentally, Verigin's birthday, the large party Daugavas of Transcaucasia assembled in 3 villages to burn the weapons they owned, in the event remembered ever since as the burning of the arms. Arrests and beatings by government's Cossacks followed. Soon, Cossacks were billeted in many of the Daugavas' houses, and their original inhabitants were dispersed through remote villages in the region. Part 1, Biography. Chapter 3, The Exodus. Horrified at the plight of his followers, in August 1896 Verigin wrote to Empress Alexandra Fyodorovna, the wife of Nicholas, making a number of proposals to resolve the conflict, such as the resettlement of the large party Daugavas to some remote province of Russia, assuming that an exemption from military service could still be granted, or emigration to Britain or Canada. Leo Tolstoy and his associates addressed Russian and international public with letters and articles about the persecution of the Daugavas. In 1898, an agreement was reached with the Tsar's Minister of the Interior, Ivan Nikolaevich Dernovo, to allow the Daugavas leave for Canada. Between 1898 and 1899, around 7,500 Daugavas from Transcaucasia did so. Of them, some 3,300 were the members of the large party, the rest belonged to the small and the middle parties. Among them was Verigin's mother, Anastasia Verigina, around 80 years of age at the time. Smaller numbers of Daugavas, directly from Transcaucasia or from various places of exile, continued moving to Canada in the years to follow. In the fall of 1902, after 16 years in exile, Verigin was released from Obdorsk. He visited Leo Tolstoy in October, and joined his people in Yorkton, present-day Saskatchewan. In December 1902, Verigin was to visit Russia again, only once. He came in 1906, leading a delegation of 6 Daugavas to investigate a possibility of the return of the Daugavas to Russia, now that, as a result of Russian Revolution. 1905. Religious tolerance has been legislated. Verigin's delegation met with Stolypin and other ministers, who made an offer of land in the Altai, southwestern Siberia, and an exemption from the conscription. Although the offer was personally confirmed by Nicholas II, Verigin felt that, no matter what, the Daugavas' situation in Russia would not be as secure as in Canada. In March 1907 his delegation went back to Canada. Part 1, Biography. Chapter 4, in Canada. Verigin established his first Canadian residence at the Daughtaba village of Potobevshi. The victims, or perhaps the survivors. Some 15 kilometers northwest of Kamsack, Saskatchewan. On the joyful occasion of reuniting with their leader, the villagers renamed the place Atridnoy. The place of rejoicing. Atridnoy continued to be Verigin's headquarters until 1904 or 1905. The nearby village of Nadasda was the site of annual general meetings of the Daughtaba community chaired by him. When the new Canadian Northern Railway line crossed the Daughtaba Reserve in 1904 some 10 kilometers south of Atridnoy, a small station named after the Daughtaba leader. Initially, Verigin siding, and after 1908, Verigin Station was built there around 1904 to serve the needs of the Daughtaba community of the area. A village, also named Verigin, sometimes spelled Verigin, at least on Verigin's own CCUB letterhead, was built next to the station, and Verigin's headquarters was shifted there. In 1905, the exiled Daughthabas rejected the newly enforced requirements of Dominion Lands Act, which attempted to register their communal lands under individual ownership, and rebelled against the request. Following this, in 1907 the communal land system was abolished, and in 1908 Verigin led around 6,000 of his group. Christian Community of Universal Brotherhood, CCUB. To British Columbia. CCUB still continued to own some properties and industrial facilities in Saskatchewan, and its headquarters remained in Verigin for some years to come. Verigin had another residence built for himself near Grand Forks, British Columbia, spending the rest of his life sharing his time between the two provinces. Part 2. Verigin's death. Verigin was assassinated in a still unsolved Canadian Pacific Railway train explosion on October 29, 1924 on the Kettle Valley Railway, now known locally as the Columbia and Western Railway line near Farron, between Castlegar and Grand Forks, which also killed his 17-year-old secretary Maurice Trelayeff, member of the provincial legislature John McKee, P.J. Campbell, Hakeem Singh, Harry J. Bishop, W. J. Armstrong, and Neely Armstrong. The government initially, during investigation, had stated the crime was perpetrated by people within the Daughtaba community, while the Daughthabas suspected Canadian government involvement. To date, it is still unknown who was responsible for the bombing. Verigin's grave is located near Brilliant, a historically Daughtaba village outside Castlegar, British Columbia. Part 3. Successors. After Verigin's murder in 1924, the majority of the community Daughthabas proclaimed his son Peter P. Verigin, who was still in the USSR, as his successor. However, several hundred Daughthabas recognized P.V. Verigin's widow, Anastasia F. Golubova, 1885 to 1965, also spelt Golubov, who had been Verigin's wife for some 20 years, as their leader. In 1926, Anastasia's followers split from CCUB, forming a breakaway organization called the Lordly Christian Community of Christian Brotherhood. They left British Columbia for Alberta, where they set up their own village at Shoulders, near Arrowwood, Alberta, which existed until 1943. In the meantime, Peter P. Verigin arrived from the USSR and assumed the leadership of CCUB in 1928. After the bankruptcy of CCUB, he organized USCC, Union of Spiritual Communities of Christ. In 1938, when Peter P. Verigin died in 1939, the community Daughthabas proclaimed his son, and P.V. Verigin's grandson, Peter P. Verigin II, as their new spiritual leader. But as the latter was in Soviet prisons at the time, it was Peter P. Verigin's grandson, and Peter V. Verigin's great-grandson, the young John J. Verigin, who became the de facto leader of USCC. Part 4. Published works by Verigin. Pis feme dughaborx scargo rukovidital Petroviasil Fivicha Verigina. Letters of the Dauka leader Peter Vasilievich Verigin. Published by Anna Chertkov, 1901. No ISBN. Special characters in this article were substituted with audio cues. They were denoted as follows: and, left and right parentheses, a bullet point, an M dash. This recording is a derivative work from Wikipedia. For more information, to commission recordings like this, and to support the developer, please visit www.patreon.com/frogcast.